Hey everybody and welcome back. Now today we're taking a look at the GVM SD300B AIO, and I've been testing it out over the past few days just to see how it actually performs, and I'll be honest, I expected it to be powerful, but not to this level. I ended up shooting product photos at around 0.1 to 0.5% brightness just to keep things under control, and yeah, that tells you pretty quickly what kind of light we're dealing with here. So I figured we'd go through it properly, talk about what stood out to me, a few things I think could be improved, and just my overall experience using it. Starting off with the first impressions, when I opened everything up, it immediately felt like a quality kit. The softbox, the lantern softbox, the mounts, everything felt solid and well put together. Nothing felt cheap, nothing felt rushed. It all felt like it was made with some intention and love behind it. The softbox itself is actually really well designed. It pops open in seconds with a quick release mechanism, so you're not sitting there fighting rods or wasting time setting things up. You just open it, you lock it in, and you're ready to shoot. It's also built solid. You've got strong internal structure that holds its shape properly, and the depth gives you a nice balance between soft light and a bit of fall off when you need it. So you can still control direction instead of everything just going flat. And if you want even more control, you can throw on the grid and tighten things up, which is great when you're trying to shape the light a bit more precisely. Now the lantern softbox is just as nice. It opens up just as quickly and it spreads light in a full 270 degrees, so it fills the space really evenly. It's one of those setups where you can light a whole scene with a single source and it just looks clean and great. And what I really like is that you still get control. You can adjust how much light spills using the skirt, so it's not just blasting light everywhere. You can shape it depending on what you're shooting. Now both of them feel durable, easy to pack down, and quick to set up, which honestly makes a bigger difference than you think when you're actually working. And picking up the light itself, it's got some weight to it. It's definitely on the heavier side in my opinion, but not really in a bad way. It feels more like, this is a proper piece of gear, like something that's built to last. And taking a deeper look at it, the weight probably comes from the amount of cooling packed into it, considering how much power this thing is putting out. Even the cable stood out to me, and I know that sounds like a small detail, but when you hold it, it just feels really solid and well made. It's not flimsy, it's not cheap. It feels like it was built with purpose and high quality. This cable for sure stood out to me. And one thing I really like about this light is that the power supply is built directly into the unit. So you don't have to deal with a separate brick hanging off your setup somewhere. You just plug it in and you're good to go, which makes everything feel a lot cleaner and easier to manage. And the cone reflector that comes with it also does a really good job. The interior design isn't just there for looks, it's actually shaping how the light is being pushed forward. When you look inside it, especially if you shine another light into it, you can really see how reflective and directional it is. It's not just scattering light everywhere, it's guiding it forward in a much more controlled way. And that's something you can actually see in the results. The spread feels even but still focused, instead of just flooding the scene. With this light, you've also got full control over the color temperature, from 2700 Kelvin up to 6800 Kelvin, and the transition between those values is very smooth. No weird jumps or inconsistencies. Now, when it came to actually using the light, I didn't just want to talk about it. I wanted to see what it does in a real setup, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, right? So I used it for some product photography, a proper use case where lighting actually makes or breaks the shot. And this is where things got interesting. Because the light is so strong, I ended up shooting between 0.1 and 0.5% brightness. That was without any diffuser, just using the aluminum reflector, and anything above that was just blowing out the image. But what really stood out to me wasn't just the power, it was the character of the light. The images came out with a much more defined look. We got stronger contrast, deeper shadows, and highlights that had shape instead of just flattening it out. It gave the product a more bold, slightly dramatic feel rather than the softer, safer look you sometimes get. On the back, you got a color display where you can adjust brightness, Kelvin, and also things like fan modes. You got options like smart, high, and silent mode, and I've been using it mostly in smart mode, and honestly, it's been working really well. It starts fairly quiet, and I haven't had any issues with noise so far. And using it over time, a couple of things stood out. The app itself is actually very easy to set up and connects pretty quickly. Once you're in and adjusting the light itself, it's noticeably faster compared to using the dial on the unit, especially for brightness. Having a slider makes a big difference since the knob can feel a bit slow when you're trying to move quickly. But for me personally, it's not really about relying on an app. I tend to prefer a more hands-on workflow where everything is quick, simple, and directly controlled on the light itself. I don't like having to reach for my phone and depend on another device just to adjust my setup. So while the app is genuinely useful, especially for speed, I'd much rather see that same responsiveness built into the light itself. If the brightness control was faster and more efficient on the unit, the GVM SD300B AIO would be right up there as one of the strongest lights in its class, hands down. Now talking about the built-in lighting effects, they are a bit mixed. Some of them are usable, others feel a bit underwhelming, but personally, they're not something I'd rely on. But depending on the situation, I guess they could be useful. Another small detail that I actually liked is that the light comes with a certified inspection document. It's stamped and date, and it's showing it's been quality checked before shipping. It's a small thing, but it does add a bit more confidence in the overall build and quality control, and I personally appreciate it a lot. Now, in terms of things I'd like to see improved, there are two main ones. The first is the weight. This is not something you're going to be moving around all the time. Personally, I prefer lighter gear just because it makes it quicker to reposition, easier to adjust, and overall faster to work with when you're changing setups a lot. This is definitely more suited for a studio or a fixed setup. But at the same time, that weight does tell you something. There's some serious cooling going on inside, and with this level of output, that just makes sense. And the second one is the brightness knob. If you're using the physical controls on this light itself, going from 0 to 100 means you're standing there turning it for a while, and it just feels too slow. This is honestly the weakest part of the light. It's not just a small annoyance, it actually affects how quickly you can work when you're trying to dial things in. But now, as I mentioned before, if you're using the app, this really isn't an issue. The slider is much faster and it makes brightness changes way easier. But for the way I like to work, more hands-on, directly on the light, quick and simple, this is still the part that stands out the most. So if you need to get to a certain level fast using the dials on the unit, it just takes longer than it should. Now, to be fair, if you're making very fine adjustments, that slower control can help you, but realistically, most of the time you just want to get close quickly, and it doesn't really do that well, especially considering the Kelvin adjustment is already much faster and is clearly something that could be improved. Another small thing I thought about after using it is storage. For a light of this size and quality, it would have been nice to have some kind of dedicated case included. Right now, it just goes back into the original box, and that doesn't feel like the best long-term solution. For me, it's not a big issue since I have a rolling case, but it's definitely something that would add value. And one last thing, the Bowens mount does get pretty hot after using the light for a while, but that's completely normal for lights like this. But just something to keep in mind so you don't go grabbing it right away after use. Another important thing to mention here is you got flicker-free illumination with up to 221,950 lux, which basically means you're getting clean footage while still having a huge amount of output to work with. Color accuracy is also strong here with CRI 97+ and TLCI 97+, so colors look natural and skin tones come through the way they should. And so what does GVM offer around this light? Well, you got flexible payment options so you can pick whatever works for you. And there's also a 2-year warranty included, which is always nice to have for something like this. And you also have a 30-day return window as well. If it doesn't fit your setup, you're not stuck with it. And when it comes to shipping, it's pretty straightforward. It arrives in about 5 to 10 days with tracking. So overall, this is a very powerful and well-built light. You're getting excellent light quality, strong output, a solid design, and a really clean setup with the built-in power supply. The app works well and the cooling is solid, and there are a bunch of different accessories and modifiers that you can attach to this light, especially because it's a Bowens mount. But once again, just to make this clear, this isn't really a run and gun light, it's more of a studio tool, something you can set up and rely on. But in that environment, it performs really well. And honestly, if you're working at 0.1% power and still getting great results, you probably got more than enough light for anything you're shooting. Well, alright guys, that's it for this one. Let me know what you think and I'll catch you in the next one.